Helping people to get to know themselves better is a really important part of the coaching process. And one of the tools that I use to help people do that is the Harrison Assessment's online questionnaire. The more traditional approach to behaviour assessment reports with regards to personality traits is what we call a bipolar scale. And really what that means, as you can see on the screen, is that at one end of the scale you have a particular trait, in this case being frank, and the opposite end of the scale is its opposite, which is being diplomatic. You would think that these two traits were in fact paradoxical in the sense that I can't be both at one time. You're either one or the other. And of course the aim here is to actually be both, or be able to move between one or the other at will. Once we've taken these separate measurements and seen as they are complementary to each other, we can then look at turning them into a graph and make it into a visual display or representation of our normal behaviour range, which will then give us a bit of an insight into a person's normal behaviour range within this particular paradox. As you can see on the screen at the moment, a high score on both being frank and diplomatic will put us into the upper right hand quadrant, which is what we call forthright diplomacy, where you've got a good balance. However, if you find that there is a high score, for instance, on frank and a low score on diplomatic, then there's a strong tendency for that person to be very blunt. On the other hand, a high score in being diplomatic and a low score on frankness, you end up being rather evasive, to put it mildly. And of course, a low score on both, you'd be a fairly poor communicator. The question is, can I be both, or can you be both, and not be stuck at one end of the range or the other? Because the reality is that can be very, very limiting. The software has been very cleverly designed by Dan Harrison to also show up what we call aggressive and passive imbalances. And what this means is that there can be a tendency, if you're on the strong side of being frank, for instance, that under stress you will actually flip your behaviour and become its opposite. In this case, from being a very blunt person, if somebody really challenges you and puts you under stress, you can actually then flip into being evasive. And the passive imbalance is just the same, really. It's if your tendency is to be very evasive, and again the software's picked up that there may be a tendency to flip to its opposite under stress. So if somebody's really giving you a hard time and you're used to being diplomatic, then you can actually snap and have a real go at them. And the size of the little circle that shows on there really relates to the likelihood of that happening, as I said, under stress. In the paradox report, there are 12 pairs of opposite traits: certain versus open reflective, analytical intuitive, risking, analyzes pitfalls, self-acceptance, self-improvement, self-motivated, stress management, enforcing versus warm and empathy, frank and diplomatic, as we've already seen, persistent, experimenting, authoritative, collaborative, assertive, helpful, organized, flexible, and optimistic versus analyzing pitfalls. And the result of this is the graph that you see on the screen right now. And that's organized into, as I said, 12 sets of paradox pairs. But they're also lined up in a very special way. As you can see, there are 3 columns and 4 rows across. Now, the 3 columns are laid out as the first column is opinions, the middle one is decisions approach, and the right hand one is strategic. And working from the top, the rows are initiating, motivating, implementing, and maintaining each of those three subjects. Now, as you can imagine, this builds up a fairly clear picture of the overall personality of the person who's taken the questionnaire, and can, as I said before, can be a real insight into their own behaviours and motivations. And some really, really good insights with the right questioning can be gleaned from this, and some real learnings on how to proceed perhaps in the future can also be gained as well. If you would like to know more about the Paradox Report and how coaching might help you get more out of your life, then feel free to give me a call. My contact details are on the page here. Or failing that, why not download the free report that I have, which is 5 Keys for Successful Living. And there's a bonus CD that goes with that as well, which is how to get extraordinary results and enjoy life more. Thanks for watching.